A scared individual is a dangerous individual. That's what we're going to be talking about this morning. And I've got Scott O'Brien here from APB Consulting Solutions. Scott comes from a background as an intel analyst with the Kentucky Department of Homeland Security. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. He really is an expert on situational awareness and what's to be expected from the crowds out there today. What should we do? How can we mitigate risk of ourselves, risk to our families? What can we do to make sure that we think safe out there?
Well, one of the first things I want to discuss is, we need to, in a time like this with the COVID-19 in particular, we have got to pay attention to the behavior of others. We first want to control ourselves, and by doing that, we have to understand that we need to bring a calm onto ourselves. This is an odd situation that many of us are not used to being involved in, but we can still develop a plan to make it through it just fine. The second part of that is the potential irrational behavior of others, and that's what I would like to get into and talk a little bit about today, and use an example such as going to the grocery store, something that simple, but we have already seen things that have occurred across the country where people are losing their minds to get things such as toilet.
That's an understatement. That's an absolute. Every grocery store has empty shelves right now. All the behavior is irrational.
Well, and my biggest thing is this: if you go into an environment like this, and again, let's use the example of the grocery store. Anxiety is one of those things that travels rather quickly amongst people, and anxiety works differently in the individual. So we have to assume that someone may not be handling this anxiety of a pandemic as well as we are. That's okay.
Absolutely. CDC even brings it up. If you go on their website, they've got articles on how to deal with anxiety, how to cope with stress in situations like this. So if you do shut down, absolutely go get some resources. Get yourself help. Get out of the closet.
Yes. But there's a proper way to do that and a less intelligent way to do that. So, for example, one of the things, the product that you referred to earlier is one of our two products at APB that is an actual analytic product. The ThinkSafe product is one that we do an overview of a particular occurrence. This is COVID-19 is a great example about how people are reacting to that. Whereas the Analyze It product is more so a looking at a specific event.
Like an active shooter?
Yeah. An active shooter would be a great example. We actually dive in and, we're not just regurgitating a news feed to you. We're actually using our skills and multiple types of sourcing to come up with a good option or a good plan that you can read and you can say, look, this actually makes a lot of sense. I should apply this.
Absolutely.
So in the ThinkSafe product that we recently just did, we used 5 examples of, again, going back to the grocery store and saying, look, there's 5 things that we think that are very simple that if you apply, you will probably keep yourself and your family in a little bit of a safer environment than if you just, go at this haphazardly. The first one of those is being just taking that moment and actually examining what you're walking into. What are people doing? If it's a crowd, how is the crowd's behavior? If it's not that many people, how are the individuals acting? But we're going to assume that it's a crowd. Like you've seen the lines outside of many of the grocery stores or of people waiting. Examine that behavior, because if you see something that doesn't look right, or your situational awareness tells you, boy, this crowd is a little irate about something, I may not want to grab a cart and walk straight up into that.
Yeah, if it looks like poop, smells like poop.
Yes, that's that's exactly it. So something that simple, just taking a moment and examining what am I actually walking into, will save you a lot of headache.
Yeah.
The second thing is once you're there, and once you particularly get inside, is moving around people. I don't want to necessarily go straight to the crowd. So again, this is kind of funny, but it is a true behavior we've seen is the toilet paper. Let's say the toilet paper is in aisle 6. And if we see that is where everybody is heading, we can't, you can't take the concept or the idea or the mentality of being a sheep and following everybody.
You mean I can't just stiff arm the other freak shows and get there first?
No, unfortunately, because then you result in what we have seen are these fights over toilet paper, which is absurd. So taking the time to say, look, all right, aisle 6 is obviously a little congested right now. I'm gonna use the plan I established ahead of time, meaning the items that I feel that I need to have, I've made a list or I have a list in my mind. And this is, again, now this is a whole nother topic. So Noah, for instance, you have young children.
Yep.
My kids are all grown and out of the house. My plan is probably going to be different than what your plan is going to be.
Well, I don't have to buy diapers anymore.
Yeah, no diapers, or if you do have to buy diapers, but you're gonna get the necessities for your children above your own more than likely, or you're gonna figure out, okay, we definitely need this as a family, but then my kids need this. Whereas me and my wife, it's just for us. We know our, so that's what I'm saying. Understand your plan, and if aisle 6 is not needed initially, go do other things. Avoid that crowd.
Yeah, but what if the crowd is everywhere? What if the crowd is at the checkout line? I mean, you can't expect me to go to the grocery store and not encounter crazy people doing crazy things.
Okay, you're exactly right. So that brings us to point 3. If I am in a situation that, okay, this to a degree is unavoidable, now I have to start examining the behavior of the group again, or even more specific, the individual.
If somebody didn't get something that they thought they came there to get, and they're pissed off enough about it, I mean, they could go to their truck,
Yeah, exactly.
lock and load, and come back in.
And it's not out of the realm of possibility, because we've already seen people fist fighting in the aisles.
Yeah, I mean, the heightened tensions today, I don't feel like anything is off the table. And if I'm ready for an active shooter and all I do is avoid somebody in a bad mood, I'm probably in a better situation than if I were to ignore it altogether.
So, right. So, okay, let's say, for instance, I do have to leave. Something is escalating. It's not safe for, me to be there, or if I have children or your spouse. This brings us now to point 4. Is consider off times. Gathering supplies isn't necessarily meaning gathering supplies all at once. If I have to gather supplies, I can do it with strategy in mind. I can do it strategically. My wife and I could go to separate locations, and truthfully, I just had a conversation with a very good friend of mine. He said the store near him, which he lives right next to, was practically empty.
Yeah.
But the store that was closest to where I live, which was not too far from him, still had plenty of supplies. And I told him, I said, look, you need to come out here where I'm at and gauge your plan based off of that. Sometimes that means going at different times, maybe later in the evening if that's possible, where the crowd may be thinned out a little bit. But when you are in a situation like what we're witnessing now, you have to plan this way. It's for your own safety in mind.
Yeah, and if it's sporadic like that, I mean, doesn't that support the fact that maybe there isn't really a concern? There shouldn't be a need to stockpile supplies?
Oh, you're a great seguer. It brings us right to point 5, is critical thinking about what we need. What supplies are you really going to need? Again, I use the illustration of maybe, you have to separate or even go to different stores. But if I understand, look, I know I can walk into store A and nobody is in aisle 3 because everybody's in aisle 6. So I can get what I need from aisle 3, leave in a short amount of time. I'm not putting myself in an unsafe environment. Go to store B and get the rest of my supplies.
Yeah, you're not just following that same sheep mentality of like, well, they're going to aisle 6, I got to go to aisle 6 too.
The curiosity will many times lead us into an aisle 6 that now we've got people sitting in front of us with carts. Now we got people behind us. And my plan now has to change because I can't leave as quick as maybe I wanted to. I know this all sounds a little over the top, but it's truly not. If you look at the lines that are at some
It's
of
not
these
over the top
stores,
at all.
Yeah, some of these lines, you are. It's like being in high populated traffic, stuck on an interstate. It's no different.
Absolutely. I think that's probably the next step. I mean, now I'm not concerned about just getting to the aisle or getting through the cash register. I'm concerned about the parking lot as well.
Yeah.
Is somebody going to try to punk me and take my toilet paper?
Exactly.
Am I gonna have a confrontation at the light or the vehicles in front of me because they're still yelling and screaming because an argument rolled out of the store, into the car, or into the parking lot, now into the streets? I mean, it really is a never-ending cycle of people that are out of control and can't control their simple emotions, right? Sheer panic. It's kind of disheartening. It's sad to say that when it all comes down to it, and we should be coming together, not literally 4 to 6 feet apart, people. When we should be coming together, we are turning towards each other and eating each other alive, right? When we can be virtually supporting each other, instead we're breaking down as a society, right? We're not functioning together. We turn to I feel like I turn to a TV show where everybody gets dropped on an island and everyone turns against each other, where 10 seconds ago we were just in a plane hanging out watching Netflix together. All of us were hunky-dory. Now we're on the beach in a plane crash and everybody's an enemy.
Right.
I just don't understand.
Well, and then you have another variable. I saw this recently on social media and this actually occurred in a small town that's close to me. Someone had gone and hoarded, they hoarded toilet paper for whatever reason. And there was a picture, someone saw them doing this and photographed them and kind of called them out on social media. But the lady had the back of her SUV open, filled with toilet paper, and was actually selling it per roll. So some of you entrepreneurs out there are thinking, well, that's great, but
capitalism.
What you're not considering is the one person or the group that comes by and says, we don't think you should be doing that. And in fact,
that'll be me.
Yeah, we're going to come up and take everything you have. You have just now put yourself, and again, keeping what's going on in the world, you have just now put yourself in a potentially bad situation. What are the skills we really need to have? Well, obviously, training in situational awareness is one, but verbal de-escalation skills for if you are confronted by an individual. What can work is if I understand how to use some verbal de-escalation skills, and again, this is a skill set. This is not something you just come up with. I can actually de-escalate a situation that I may find myself in and de-escalate it just in enough time that I can leave the environment.
Yeah, I mean, I for one have personal experience there. I've had to do the body language dance with a possible active aggressor as I try to de-escalate the situation and pretend like I'm his best friend. I'm not listening to a word he's saying. I'm doing a body language dance, right? Trying to maintain positive control of an elbow if he tries to swing. Things like this that I'm focused on, and then I'm just being using common courtesy to keep the conversation going, all while I'm trying to plan my next move and the move after that, if he does this or if he does that. So really, if that's the next level to situational awareness, right? Because I've already established that there's something wrong with this guy or this group of people, and I got to do something, whether it's remove myself from this situation or be ready to engage. So you need to know who you're with, because I'm not going to engage if I'm with my wife and kids.
Right.
But you need to know your crowd. You need to know who you're with, know your capability, know what you're up against. There's just a level of awareness that needs to be given, especially when we're faced with people of unknown high tension. Yep. So we'll be back next week. We'll be talking about a new subject. In the meantime, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach out to me via any of those former methods of communication and let me know what you think.